Okay, y'all, today's gonna be a treat. I have the opportunity to sit with this guy on two separate occasions. And on both occasions, he literally blew my mind. He's a wealth of information, so much experience, and he's been involved in so many things that make us question what we know about history itself. I want to bring you in correctly, Hector. First and foremost, Hector Berrellez, former DEA agent. You're the recipient of the U.S. Attorney General's Award for Heroism, which was given to you at the White House. This is the highest award that can be given to a federal agent, similar to a soldier receiving the Congressional Medal of Honor. You're also the recipient of the Medal of Valor, which was awarded to you by the federal bar for saving the lives of 5 Mexican federal agents during a 2-hour standoff, a 2-hour shootout. One of, if not the longest shootout in Mexican history. You're also an author of the book, The Last Narc, and that book was turned into a miniseries on Amazon Prime entitled the same name, The Last Narc. Please welcome to VladTV, my friend, my brother, Mr. Hector Berrellez. Hector, what's up?
Good morning, Shawn. Thank you for having me.
Hector, I was so blown away with our prior conversations. I really had to bring you back. And I thank you for accepting the offer. I want to start, as you know, we're in election season. 2024, the United States is going to vote for the next president of the United States. Everybody's out on the campaign trail. And one of the biggest agendas that is on everybody's talking points are the southern border. I couldn't think of a better person to have this conversation with, because you know the inner workings of what's going on the borders than yourself. So first, I want to start by asking, can you describe a TCO, a transnational criminal organization, and how does that differ from a typical gang?
A transnational organization is a criminal organization that expands its criminality to numerous countries. In other words, it's not like a regular gang organization or an organization that just involves in criminality in their own country. They actually spread their criminality throughout, in this case, the world.
Okay, cartels in Mexico have what some label as approaches or corridors that each one of them control along the U.S. Southwest border. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am. I'm very familiar with that.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It means that in Mexico, you have different cartels that are basically bringing in drugs and human trafficking, involving human trafficking in numerous parts of our international Mexican border. Some of them control the Texas area, others control the Arizona area. But in Mexico, what we have is 2 major, huge, very prolific drug organizations.
Even as I was doing research, there were some cartels that popped up that I never even heard of. Obviously, we know the Sinaloa cartel. But in doing research, the Jalisco's New Generation cartel, also Los Zetas, and the Gulf cartels. Are you familiar with those names?
Yes, basically what we have is we have 2 major cartels, and then you have other little cartels that work underneath them. The Chapitos, who distribute most of the fentanyl in Mexico, work under the Sinaloa cartel and the protection of the Sinaloa cartel. The other cartels, like the one in Texas, the one you just mentioned, they work
Who's
under
that,
the other
Jalisco?
organization, which is the Mencho, the Nueva Generación organization. But there's 2 major organizations that run all the sub-organizations that operate along our U.S.-Mexico border.
Okay, I'm assuming that one of the major cartels are the Sinaloa. Who's the other major?
Cartel Nueva Generación ran by El Mencho Nemesio Osuguera Cervantes. The Sinaloa cartel is basically run by a person that nobody hears about, who's very discreet, and that's El Mayo Zambara, Ismael Mayo Zambara.
Okay, the last time we spoke, you mentioned that name actually on several occasions. People were under the assumption that El Chapo ran that organization, the Sinaloa cartel. That's not true. It's actually El Mayo.
That's correct. El Chapo was basically put out there to have the spotlight so that he could cover for El Mayo Zambada. El Chapo was a significant drug trafficker, but he was never a boss, a jefe de jefes of any cartel. He worked under the Sinaloa cartel as his sons continued to operate the Chapitos under the Sinaloa cartel.
The Chapitos, you mentioned them early in the conversation. How big is their organization? And did they just inherit that spot, or are they as brutally aggressive as their father is? We know that their father ran a crew called the Sleepers. I don't know how to say it in Spanish.
Well, El Chapo Guzman was a sicario. He was a killer for the, first of all, the historical Guadalajara cartel. El Chapo later, after we dismantled, and we did dismantle that cartel because they were involved in Kiki Camarero's murder, he actually went into work under El Mayo Zambada, who had been also a member of the Guadalajara cartel previously. But El Chapo made his bones basically by killing people. He is a sociopath that has no feelings, that can be basically decapitating you with his right arm and eating a sandwich with his left hand. He is a total social psychopath, a brutal killer, and a very evil guy.
Okay, so again, what was the name of his crew? How do you say the Sleepers in Spanish?
How do you say what now?
The Sleepers. Wasn't
Los
his
Dormidos.
crew?
Yes. When Chapo first started in his drug business, he was part of what's called Los Dormidos, were the sleepers. And basically what the sleepers were, their job was only to bury those that the Guadalajara cartel had assassinated. They would be the ones that would take the dismembered bodies or the people that were basically executed by the cartels and bury them. Also, they would participate in dismembering bodies, castrating their enemies and stuff like that. Because the bosses at the level of Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, who was the boss of the Guadalajara cartel, as El Mayo Zambada, who is now the boss of the Sinaloa cartel, they're not going to dirty their hands. They're not going to go out there and castrate some guy. So they use people like El Chapo Guzman, people like that. And that's why he was a leader of Los Dormidos, those that would be involved in dismembering bodies after they were killed, cutting them up, whatever, and then they would take them out and bury them.
Got you. Okay, his sons, the Chapitos, are they as brutal as he was?
The Chapitos, yes, they're as brutal as he was. But remember that the Chapitos are run by El Guano, who is El Chapo Guzman's brother. He's the one actually running the Chapitos. And they basically control most of the fentanyl production in Mexico right now. But El Guano runs under El Mayo Zambada. He's very close to El Mayo Zambada. Nobody mentions these guys, El Guano and them guys. These guys kind of like in the background. They're very smart. They don't show themselves too much. And the Chapitos, like their father, they like the glory. They like being glorified in narco corridos, and the spotlight is on them. They have the biggest right now, Peso Pluma, the biggest narco corrido singer, is dedicated several songs to the Chapitos. They like to be in the limelight. They like to be narcos. They're not very smart because everybody knows who they are. Ovidio, one of the youngest chapitos, was just arrested and brought into the United States to face trial.
Speaking of fentanyl, there's been a 4,000% increase in fentanyl seizures at the border over the last 3 years. Mexico has now become the major distributor of fentanyl to the United States. How the hell are they getting all of this product into the United States?
Well, to begin with, fentanyl is a very deadly drug, as we know. 275 U.S. citizens on an average die a day because of fentanyl overdoses. And also, fentanyl is the weapon used by the Chinese to basically attack us. The Chinese have waged a silent war against us, and the way they're attacking us is by providing the precursors, all the precursor drugs that the cartels need, mainly the chapitos, so that they could distribute this deadly drug. They are committing genocide on our country. In 2001, we had 78,000 deaths due to fentanyl. In 2002, it went to over 100,000 people died a year because of fentanyl overdoses.
These statistics are staggering, and it's mind-blowing because at the end of the day, fentanyl is literally killing hundreds of thousands of people a year. And the cartels know this. So why are they using it? Because in any business, you want repeat customers. They're literally killing their customer base. Why not change this particular ingredient?
They don't care. Basically, a lot of people don't die. I mean, not everybody that uses fentanyl dies. They become addicted to them. A lot of them don't die. But you're right. I mean, the mortality rate on fentanyl overdoses is tremendous. I believe they don't care. They are working with the Chinese, as I stated, who have waged a silent war against our country. It's a form of genocide they're committing against the United States. It is no secret that the Chinese have become partners with the Mexican drug cartels.
Okay, you say it's no secret, and I'm assuming it's no accident. Why do you believe that the Chinese are actively providing these cartels with the ingredients to make such a deadly product that is killing US citizens?
Because it is the contention of the Chinese that they don't have to waste a bullet to destroy our country. They don't have to attack our country with weapons. They're using fentanyl as a weapon of terrorism. They are destroying our country. There is a silent war that has been waged by the Chinese against our country. And what a better way to do it? By using the Mexican cartels. The border is open. It is out of control. We are experiencing invasion at our southern border. And in this invasion, I might say, it's not just the importation of drugs. Look at all the terrorists that are coming into our country, the criminals that are coming into our country, the cells of spies coming into our country. There is a war against this country, and we're not addressing it, Shawn.
Okay, I got to ask you the most obvious question then. People like the New York City Mayor, Eric Adams, has gone on the record and said, close those damn borders. Close the borders. You are sitting here telling us in no uncertain term how much drugs, human trafficking, so much is coming through the border. Why doesn't the United States just close the borders? Get it together, find a new way to bring people in legally, as opposed to what's happening now where we see migrants coming over the borders by the tens of thousands daily, and many of the US cities can't even hold them. They're being shipped to other cities once they land, in certain states.
Well, I believe that somebody is benefiting from keeping the border open. There's corruption not only in Mexico, we suffer from corruption here in the United States. I believe that somebody is benefiting from cartel money to keep the border open. Another thing is, we are basically hated by other countries. Iran's our enemy. We know that. The Russians are our enemy. The Chinese are our enemy. And yet, we see an invasion of Chinese, Russians, Iranians, and a lot of our enemies are coming right through the border. I don't understand why we haven't addressed that issue. The number one priority of any country's government is the protection of its citizens. And here, I don't think we're being protected. When you let all these criminals in, and not all of them are coming here to work, there's the getaways, and over 1 million getaways have entered this country. There's a reason why these getaways run and hide and avoid being detected by the Border Patrol. If the border is open and you're coming here just to work, not to conduct any harm, you go and surrender to the Border Patrol, and then they will give you a ticket as to what state you want to live in. But the runaways, those are the ones we have to be concerned with, Shawn, because the runaways are the terrorists, are the criminals that are not reporting themselves or giving themselves up at the border to the Border Patrol because they don't want to be identified, because they are criminals, because they're on terrorist watch lists and so forth. Those are the dangerous people that are coming into the country, and nobody knows where they're at. Nobody knows.
Are people, I mean, you're very familiar with the southern border. You're also very familiar with the cartels in Mexico. Are these migrants able to get over the border without the help of the cartels, or are all of them paying a fee to come into America illegally?
Nobody comes from any country through Mexico without paying off the cartels. Nobody. If anybody is caught trying to come across without paying off the cartels, they are picked up, tortured, and even murdered by the cartels. They actually issue these illegal aliens coming in wristbands as proof that they have paid the cartels. And mind you, the cartels are very vicious, very violent. Nobody knows more than I how violent they are. I faced them. I chased them in Mexico. I was involved in gun battles with these cartel guys. I've seen them shoot and kill people that were working with me to try to stop the cartels. They are very vicious, and they instill terror, in everybody. Everybody's afraid of them. So if you're coming in from China and you want to come into the United States from Mexico, you better pay the cartels. Because if you don't pay the cartels, you won't get in, number one. And number two, if you try to get in without their permission or without paying them, they will kill you. Everybody knows that. And they charge different prices to different ethnic groups coming in. I understand that if you're coming in from China, you have to pay them $20,000. Okay? If you're coming in from South America, the quota is lower. It's $5,000. And what a lot of people don't understand is a lot of these women coming in, most of them are being raped by these cartel guys. Okay? They're bad people. And we don't talk about that. We're like, oh, wow, they decapitated babies in Israel, Hamas did. And they're raping all the women. That's happening right here on our borders. In November 5 of 2019, the Sinaloa cartel intercepted a group of Mormons that were traveling from the United States to Mexico to attend a wedding. They attacked them. They killed 13 women and children. There was no adult males in that group. There was like 3 or 4 SUVs carrying families down there to this wedding in Mexico. And guess what? They burned 3 babies in their baby chairs alive. There is no difference, Shawn, between Hamas, Al Qaeda, ISIS, then there's Mexican drug cartels. And the Mexican drug cartels, by the way, are very well armed, extremely well armed. They have surface to air missiles, they have grenade launchers, they have drones that they attack their enemies with. They're very, very well armed. As a matter of fact, that's why the Mexican army won't take them on, because they're as well armed or better armed than the Mexican army.
That's insane. It really, really is. The U.S. border with Mexico, it extends nearly 2,000 miles. How much, to your knowledge, of the border is protected by the U.S. Border Patrol?
But people have to understand that right now it's an open border. The border patrol doesn't stop anybody. If you're coming in, what you do is you go and report yourself to the border patrol, and they facilitate right now your entry into the United States. They give you some type of form that you fill out that you're going to appear later at a later date at an immigration hearing. But these people never report back. They just come in and stay here illegally. As I stated before, they have recorded over 85,000 children, illegal alien children coming into this country. They've disappeared. Nobody knows where they are. I'll tell you where they are. A lot of them are being used to harvest their organs, meaning the cartels will take a kidney or whatever from a child and sell it to some family that needs a kidney for their families. Okay, a lot of the children are being sold for adoption. Let's say an American family does not qualify to legally adopt a child. You can go to the cartel and they'll sell you a child. Okay, these are the things that are not talked about. The women are basically being come in and they're being used as sex slaves and prostituted by the cartels, not in Mexico, Shawn, in our country, on our side of the border. This is not talked about. This is being covered up by the media, I guess, and nobody's talking about this. But this is happening now. The cartels don't only operate south of our border, they're in our country. And the violence is spilling over into the United States every day.
In your opinion, when we hear about the U.S. Border Patrol fighting it out with the Mexican cartels, doing their best to stop illegals from entering our country, is this just media hype? Because if I and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if I heard you correctly, you said they're not stopping anybody. They're pretty much understanding that this is a part of business. Do I have that correct?
That is correct. Not only are they not stopping them, they're even giving them airline tickets. They're providing transportation to whatever state they want to go to. Let's say an illegal comes in and he has family in Chicago. He surrenders himself to the Border Patrol, and they ask him, "Where would you like to go?" And he says, "I'd like to go to Chicago." They provide him with an airline ticket to Chicago, wherever he wants to go. They're facilitating it. And those that are basically against closing the border are basically aiding and abetting the drug cartels. And I must remind you that we also have corruption on our side of the border. Somebody's benefited. I don't know because I'm not on the job anymore. But somebody's benefiting from the open border. It's not by accident, Shawn.
Yeah, I'm listening to you, and again, your experience and your knowledge in this area, it's mind blowing. Because we all watch the news, and again, this is election season. This is one of the agendas that are on everybody's topics that they're running on is the Southwest border. I don't understand why that border is just not shut. I don't understand why our politicians, our government, our president doesn't just acknowledge that it's not working. The U.S. is jam-packed. We have so many people entering our country illegally Why don't we just shut it down, figure out how to, number one, protect the border, and number two, figure out a way to bring anybody into this country legally. And when we get it all figured out, we'll open it back up. From a governmental standpoint, can you explain to us why it just hasn't been shut down?
Well, like I stated before, and this is only my opinion, I don't know, other than the fact that someone is benefiting. Somebody is working with a cartel. Somebody's getting money from the cartels. And somebody's agenda is that to destroy our country within our government. Somebody is not, basically caring about the safety of our citizens. Why? I don't know. I don't know what their agenda is, but it's pretty ludicrous that they don't close the border down, knowing darn well that our enemy countries like Venezuela is emptying out their prisons and sending all their criminals up here. Okay, that's a fact. That's known. I stated before that I'm very concerned about the getaways, those that don't surrender yourself. Now, if you can just surrender yourself to the Border Patrol, be brought into the country, have you sign some piece of paper that you're going to appear in immigration court someday down the road, and they're going to give you a ticket to go to wherever you want to travel to the States, why would you not surrender yourself to the Border Patrol? I have a lot of respect for the Border Patrolmen, but these are the orders that they're getting from above. They're not arresting anybody anymore. Yeah, they'll arrest somebody if he is a known terrorist, criminal, if he's on the watch list. But most of these people are coming in unvetted. And like I said, the getaways are getaways for a reason. And those are the ones we're going to have to contend with down the road. Those are the ones we need to be worried about. Those are your terrorists coming in from Iran, coming in from Russia, coming in from our enemy countries that are our enemies. These are the guys we're going to have to worry about. And then all these criminals coming in, like these people that have been arrested for murder in other countries, rape in other countries. Those are the guys we got to worry about, because they're going to do a lot of damage to us in the future, and that's who I worry about.
You keep using the word terrorist. So I want to focus on that word for a second. Why do you believe that the U.S. has not classified the cartels as terrorists to the United States? Yes, they're classified as criminals, but if they're classified as terrorists, the U.S. gets to operate a lot differently in terms of dismantling, attacking, and taking apart their organizations. Why do you think we haven't been able to label them as what they are, terrorists of the United States?
Because I don't believe that they're looking at them as terrorists. The thing is that, remember that the Mexican government is corrupt at all levels. So therefore, you're not going to get any cooperation from the Mexican government as far as tearing down the cartels. They're part of the cartel. As I stated before, the Sinaloa cartel basically is protected by numerous generals in the Mexican army right now. The Nueva Generación cartel is protected by former PRI and PAN parties, which are parties opposite from the party in power now. So they are protected by the governments of Mexico. They are bringing in not millions, they are bringing in billions of dollars into the Mexican economy. They estimated that the cartels are making about $50 billion a year in drug trafficking and human trafficking. That is a lot of money. I'll remind people, there's 1,000 million and 1 billion, and the cartels are estimated to have made over 50 billion last year in drug trafficking and human trafficking. So all levels of the Mexican government are compromised. López Obrador, the current president of Mexico, said that he was going to combat the cartels with abrazos, not balazos. That he was going to basically deal with them by hugging them, not shooting them. That's exactly what it translates to. And he went public and said it. He said, I don't want to work with the cartels. I'm not going to do war with the cartels. So therefore, there you have it. And unless we, the United States, sanction Mexico, basically force Mexico to help us combat the cartels will continue to exist in Mexico. We've never done it. And I agree with you that it is said that the way to be able to handle the cartels is to declare them terrorist organizations, so therefore we can go in and take them out. As well armed as they are and everything else, I don't think they could win a war against the United States. I really doubt it. I think that if we went in there, we could do it with the cartels in a couple of weeks. That's quick. But as you stated, nobody's doing anything about it. Corruption continues in Mexico. And we also had corruption on our side of the border. I've seen it on both sides. So therefore, nothing happens. It just goes on and on and on. Nobody stops the cartels. And until somebody comes in and says, we've got to stop this invasion of our country at our southern borders, nothing is going to happen, Shawn. It's just going to continue going on and continue suffering that we are in drug overdoses every year, not just because of fentanyl overdoses, but also overdoses of methamphetamine, cocaine, and all the other basically illegal drugs that people are using and abusing in this country. The last time I was in downtown LA, all you see is all the homeless walking around like zombies. All these people have burnout brains because of drug use, or they were high on drugs. And, it's terrible what you see now in our streets. All you see is campsites, tents all over the place, and people walking around like zombies, a lot of them thrown out there unconscious. You got to walk around bodies. You got to walk around urine and human defecation. And that's what you see in the big cities of this country now.
Speaking of drugs, in the last 2 decades, Mexico has also become the largest transit country for South American source cocaine. Cocaine is almost exclusively seized at the port of entry, and they're being stuffed in non-factory compartments in privately owned vehicles. Why do you think that the cocaine that the world is seeing is almost exclusively coming in through Mexico, as opposed to the West Indies where it used to come?
It's coming in through Mexico because the Mexican government works with them. They facilitate it. You can buy anything in Mexico. The police work with the cartels. The government officials work with the cartels. In Chapo Guzman's last trial, López Obrador, president of Mexico's chief of security, Garcia Luna, was identified as being a partner with the Sinaloa cartel. So basically, he's receiving millions of dollars from the Sinaloa cartel, and he's doing nothing to combat them. But he did combat another enemy group of traffickers and killed them off the Mitras Levas because he was supporting the Sinaloa cartel. It is no secret. Garcia Luna himself was tried and convicted in the United States for drug trafficking and facilitating drug trafficking and taking bribes in Mexico.
Back when you were on the job, how much cocaine was coming into the U.S. as opposed to what's coming in now?
Well, basically 80% of the cocaine that we were seizing back when I was on the job in the 80s and 90s was coming in from, Central and South America. Okay, now 100% of it is coming in from Central and South America. Nothing is done to curtail or stop the cocaine importation into this country. The cartels are becoming filthy rich, and countries are benefiting themselves from drug money. The government of Mexico, Shawn, I believe that one of the reasons that they don't go after these cartels, first of all, most of them are on the take and taking bribes, millions of dollars in bribes from them. And they're not interested in doing anything about it because look at all the money that is being generated by the cartels in Mexico. Nobody opposes them. They actually, they provide millions and millions of dollars in campaign monies to those politicians that are going to be doing their bidding. So therefore, they are actually putting in place these guys that are getting elected to the governorships of states and even to the presidency of Mexico.
So you believe it goes that high up the ladder? These guys have literally infiltrated the president of Mexico.
Yes, sir. I believe it goes that high, and it's been said and testified to in numerous federal trials. Okay, like a lot of that information was came out during the trial of El Chapo Guzman in New York. So what I'm saying on is evidence and testimony that has been provided in these trials, especially when they tried Garcia Luna, the former Secretary of Security in Mexico. I mean, that's a very high up position. That's such a high position that the federal agency, Mexican federal police, the militaries were under his command, and he is taking money directly from El Mayo Zambada from the Sinaloa cartel. How high up do we want it? I mean, that you can't get any higher. It'd be like our Secretary of Defense taking money from let's say the Chinese directly and let the Chinese do what they want in the United States.
Is it safe to assume, because I'm listening to you, is it safe to assume that everyone is on the take? And if not, I got to believe some of these guys, law enforcement, government officials, they take these jobs because they are vehemently against what's happening in their country. They are tired of the cartels. How do those guys even survive in the midst of the majority of their peers being paid off by the cartels? Isn't that like a losing battle?
That is, as a matter of fact, there are some honest Mexican federal police agents that have taken jobs, but they end up either getting killed because they go arrest these guys, or they end up getting fired from their positions. In the United States, here there are a lot of unsung heroes, a lot of agents that joined to fight the drug war, joined the DEA, joined the FBI because they want to make a change, they want to make a difference. I did it. I joined not because it was a great position or because of the money or any prestige that had to do with my job. I did it because my family suffered because of addiction. My brother was a heroin addict for 20 years of his life. He was in and out of prison, Shawn. The first time I ever saw my father cry was when they brought my brother into a court in chains. And my father cried. My brother was hooked on heroin, and he supported his drug habit by stealing cars in the United States and driving them to Mexico and trading them for heroin. So I joined because I really wanted to do something. I wanted to take on these cartels, and I did my best. I tried. I'm lucky I'm still alive.
Yeah, I gotta believe that you being a Mexican American, um, and you being so honest and diligent on your job, this and speaking out in the way that you have, there's gotta be a price on your head. There has to be people, if they could get to you, would love to take you because you are really telling the world just what's going on. Do you walk in fear?
Yes, I do. I'm still afraid for my life to this day. And like I stated, Shawn, I did not do it because I needed a job or I couldn't have gotten a better job or been more successful in business, which I have a business degree in public administration. I did it because I saw the suffering in my own family. I saw the suffering in the barrio there of other mothers that were losing their sons to overdoses from drugs. And there's a lot of DEAs that are not recognized or unsung heroes that try to do the same thing I do. We didn't do it for promotion, Shawn. We didn't do it because we want to be deputy administrators. I would have never reached those high levels of the DEA. Okay? I knew I wasn't. Like I said, I went in there to do war against these guys, to take them on because of the suffering that I saw in my own family. I mean, my brother addicted to heroin at the young age of 12 years old, Shawn. That's why I did it. I didn't do it because I wanted to be a deputy administrator or be on TV, No, I did it because I believe in the cause and I took it to them. And I was in Mexico doing battle against these guys. I was involved in numerous shootouts with them. Not one, not two, numerous shootouts.
Yeah, speaking of heroin, Mexican has become the most significant source of heroin consumed in the United States. Does that surprise you at all?
It doesn't surprise me. Mexico has been supplying the majority of the heroin since the 80s and 90s. There are heroin labs all over Mexico. When I was working in Mexico, we used to go and destroy them. Now there are meth labs all over Mexico, and there's also fentanyl labs all over Mexico. And the Mexican government is doing nothing to combat these drug organizations. What you hear the president say is, "Oh, I'm gonna fight this with hugs, with abrazos, not balazos." What's he telling us? And he said it publicly, Shawn. He didn't hide. Shamelessly, he said that. What are we supposed to take from that message that the president of Mexico gave to us?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's almost unbelievable. And like you said, this is a matter of public record. He said it publicly. Even hearing you say it back, it sounds unfathomable that a leader of a country, that would be his approach. It's insane. You know, over the last 20 years, the purity of their heroin, it's increased, which has made it more marketable because it could be snorted, injected, it could be smoked. Is there even a fraction of a chance that anything is going to be done in the near future to put a dent in these guys' business? Because at the end of the day, their product is top notch. People are always going to want it. If you're hooked on heroin, I want it from Mexico because they have the good stuff.
Very, very few heroin addicts basically survive. Most of them die of overdoses. They don't live very long. And it's so profitable. Let me break it down for you, Shawn. For instance, the heroin that's coming in from Mexico right now is about 97 to 99% pure. Now, the heroin that's being injected by these heroin addicts on the streets, it's 3%. If you shoot 5% heroin right now, you'll overdose and die. So look at the profit. So they get a kilo of heroin and let's say 90%. They can make that kilo into 10 kilos and still not cut it down to street level shooting heroin. So basically what you do is you get 1 kilo of 90% heroin and you can make 10 kilos of heroin because you cut it. You add adulterant to it. This is where the profits come in. Look at the money these guys make. Because, like I stated, the shooting heroin in the street is like 3 to 5%. They're making a lot of money. So on a kilo that a heroin dealer buys here of 90% heroin for $250,000, his profit is, when he cuts it into 10 kilos, is 250,000 times 10 because now you made 10 kilos. And still, the street pusher is going to have to cut that down to shooting heroin to a lower percentage, Shawn, because if he sells heroin at 7-10%, his customers are going to die of overdoses. So look at the money that's being made.
You know, you mentioned methamphetamines earlier. The majority of the meth that's consumed by the United States is also produced in Mexico. We spoke about cocaine, heroin, and now meth. does anybody in Mexico have an honest living? Because it just feels like it is one big drug factory going on over there. And the United States is its biggest consumer base.
That is correct. And I like the way you put it. I never thought about putting it like that. Mexico is a huge drug consuming base. That's all it is. It's a drug consuming country. And they're shameless about it. Here you have the cartel guys being celebrated in songs, in narcocorridos. Like I stated, the most famous singer right now, Peso Pluma, dedicates most of his songs to the Sinaloa cartel. And so little kids in Mexico, when they see this, they want to grow up to be Chapito Guzmans. They want to grow up to be El Mayo Zambada. This is what they aspire to be because that's where the money's at. And in Mexico, these drug trafficking organizations are respected. El Señor Mayo Zambada, El famous Chapo Guzman. What's so famous about him? Guy's a, sociopath. He's a killer. Why are they writing songs about these guys? Why do little kids walk around with Chapo Guzman hats and shirts on them in Mexico? What are we doing here?
Okay, so I'm gonna throw that question back to you. In the United States, many of the local drug dealers on Thanksgiving, they're handing out turkeys. They're giving kids a couple of bucks for their pocket for lunch money. Why do you think that these cartels are so celebrated? Are they doing similar things over in Mexico? Are they paying people's rent? Are they I don't know, taking over people's car note? Like, why are these songs being made about these men? And these men are causing nothing but death and destruction to their country.
Because they see that the government of Mexico is not doing anything for them. That's why they respect it. Well, Chapo Guzman can come in and put in electricity in a village that has no electricity, build a school, which he does, and stuff like of this nature. So therefore, they say El Chapo Guzman and Mayo Zambada are doing more for us than our own government. Okay, that's what's going on. So these drug lords and jefe de jefes are more respected than their own president. They're looked at as heroes. Like I stated before, they are glamorized in movies. They are glamorized in songs. This is what's going on in Mexico. And also a lot of the Mexican American kids here, they want to be drug dealers. So therefore they're growing up in the barrio in a bad situation where their father has abandoned the family, which we see all the time. And he doesn't want to go to school. He figures, I don't have a chance in school anyway. I'm not going to go to college. I might as well just become a drug dealer. And they join this drug gangs, excuse me. It's the same thing when a lot of this hip hop music, they glamorize killing cops and the drug dealing and all the sex and all that immoral stuff. That's what the kids hear. So this is why they want to grow up to be criminals, a lot of them. A lot of them, like I said, they figure they don't have a chance in life anyway. They come from fatherless homes, broken up families. And what do? They go join gangs. And what do gangs do? They distribute drugs. We see it every day in all of our major cities. And unfortunately, Shawn, it affects the minority children more so, the Hispanic and black children in America. And our country doesn't give a darn about them either. I'll tell you that right now.
We are well aware that Mexico is the biggest distributor of many of these drugs that U.S. consumers are using. What's the most common way that they're getting this over the border? Is it in compartments in cars? Is it through human trafficking? How have you seen that is probably the most popular or effective way that these guys are getting these drugs into the country?
All of the above, Shawn. They bring it through underground tunnels. They bring it by airplanes. They smuggle it in trains. They smuggle it in ships. not only this country, but to other countries too. All of the above. They bring it in jalapeno chili cans. You name it. They can do it. Not only that, they have the money, Shawn, to bring in, like they have German engineers from other countries, like Germany, and build these great tunnels. You ought to see some of these tunnels, how sophisticated they are. They're very sophisticated with lighting and everything else underneath our border. So they bring it above us to the sky and underneath us through tunnels in our border. And right now, they don't need the tunnels. They can bring it in right through with human trafficking. They load up these illegal aliens to bring it across, unopposed by anybody at our border. The border patrol agents have a thankless job. I have a lot of respect for them, but their hands are tied. They are told to let these guys come in. A week ago, I don't know if you saw it in the news, the Lukeville, Arizona port of entry was abandoned by the Border Patrol and immigration officials. It's wide open right now. You just walk in unopposed.
You said human trafficking. Are they hiding the drugs on the people or in the people? Are they literally putting drugs in the cavities of these people crossing the borders?
Yes, they do, and they have. A lot of them are basically ordered to ingest, ounces of heroin into their bodies, and they carry them in their bellies, in their abdomens, hidden. All of the above. Any way they can get the drugs in, Shawn, that you can imagine, they bring them in.
I mean, here we go again. Mexico is also the largest foreign supplier of marijuana to the United States. And that's been for some time. We can almost go in circles in this conversation. Now that marijuana is legal in so many of the states of the United States, are they even pressing these migrants and people coming over the border for carrying the marijuana? Or are they looking at them like, oh, it's legal here anyway, go ahead?
Shawn, the cartels are growing their marijuana in the United States now.
Excuse me?
They are bringing them. Yeah, they're going into the United States now, and then basically they are selling them to cannabis and marijuana distributing outlets like here in California. Okay, there's no secret. A lot of the grows that we have here in California, they're owned by the cartels. They don't have to smuggle the marijuana in. They just grow it here. And they sell it here. And another thing that they do, that's why I say the cartels are not just in Mexico, the cartels are here. Here's what they do is they get some citizen and they say, open up a dispensary, you qualify to open it, I will finance everything, and I will have you sell all my marijuana in these outlets, and I will give you 10% of everything you make, but put everything in your name. But the real owner of the cartel, of the marijuana dispensary is not who's on paper legitimately, registered with the state of California. They are owned by the cartels. A lot of that is going on, and nobody says anything about it. That's why people end up dead all the time, is because they decided they were going to give the cartels their share of the money, and they end up being executed. The cartel violence is here also, Shawn. It's not just in Mexico. In Mexico, it's common. The two main cartels are fighting with each other all the time. They have daily shootouts where 20, 30 people are killed in one shootout. That's going on in Mexico all the time, which is not being covered by our media, by the way. That's a war going on in Mexico by the cartels because they're trying to take control and be the number one cartel and distribute most of the drugs. And like I said, who supports these cartels? Political parties. They support the cartels. And how do they control? Like I said, they contribute a lot of money to these political campaigns, and they get their candidate in the governorship so that they could do the cartel's bidding. here's another thing. Most of your army generals in Mexico, they're working for one cartel or the other. So therefore, let's say you're the president of Mexico and you decide to be honest and clean, you won't last long. They'll do a coup on you and throw you out. So therefore, you kind of look the other way and let the cartels do what they want because they have these army generals in their pocket. How many generals have we arrested over here? I forget the first name of this one last general we arrested, Cienfuegos, and the Mexican government basically complained that we arrested him and said that he should be turned back to Mexico where they could try him. They released him to the Mexican government and they received him like a hero over there and was never tried. So therefore, what you have, the cartels running the Mexican government. I mean, the Mexican army. They have the generals in their pockets. So who's going to go and oppose the cartels? That's how bad it's gotten.
In your opinion, is there any way to fix this problem? It almost seems like an entire country is being financed by drug money. How can you even hope to fix this problem from within if everybody to your right and to your left, their income is being subsidized by the cartels? It feels like a losing battle to begin with.
Shawn, when you peel the onion and you get to the root, the cause, it's one word. I can describe it in one word: corruption. First of all, you have to do away with the corruption, not only in the Mexican government, but in our government. We also suffer from corruption over here. That is where you have to go first. And it is said now, as you stated, and we've heard it all over the news, that if the Mexican drug cartels are officially declared terrorist organizations, then if we have an uncooperative government, foreign government, or president that doesn't want to cooperate with the U.S., then the U.S., to save its own citizens, can go in and do war with these cartels. And let me tell you, I don't think the cartels in the last 1 week fighting against our military and especially our SEALs. They're not that well trained.
You know, I want to talk about human smuggling and human trafficking. This is now multi-billion-dollar business. Even as you were talking, I was just looking up some stats. I want to read them back to you. The migrant smuggling economy at the U.S.-Mexico border now tops $20 billion annually. The cartels make at least $2.6 billion in profit off of these migrant smuggling. You mentioned that Mexican citizens trying to cross the border, they pay a little bit lower to do so. The average Mexican citizen that's coming into this country illegally is paying the cartels $8,600, while migrants from El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, they're paying on average $11,500 to cross that border. This border thing is a problem, but there is so much money that's being made. This is a problem that's never going to get fixed. Too many people are getting rich. Do you have any hope that this problem can be resolved? Or are all of the politicians we're listening to during these debates while on the campaign trail just telling people what they want to hear, but they know, like you know, this is a problem that is far from being solved?
No, that is correct. It's far from being solved. It's going to be very hard to solve it. It's a very difficult issue because of the money involved, the billions and billions of dollars that are involved. And as I stated before, Shawn, it's not just a Mexico problem. It's also a U.S. problem. We have a problem in this country too. We need to address the issues at the border. I don't believe that it cannot be solved. It's not going to be easy to solve it. It's going to take time to solve it. But you have to, number one, as I stated before, address the corruption issue. If you have governments that are corrupt and facilitating the drug cartels, that is a real problem. How we do it, I don't know. I don't have the answers. But I'm sure that if Mexico was sanctioned, if we could get them somehow, either through sanctions, I don't know how to do it, get them to start working with us and helping us stop this basically illegal migration, invasion of people to our border, and help us stop the smuggling of all these very, very dangerous drugs. I fully believe that we are under attack by our enemies. And as I stated before, I firmly believe that the Chinese are waging war against us. They basically have started a war against us by committing genocide of our citizens here, by basically assisting and working with the cartels in bringing in very dangerous drugs into this country. It is not by accident, Shawn. It is not by accident. There is a reason, or reasons, shall I say, that our enemies are attacking us through our own Mexican border. And as I stated before, their contention is that they can destroy this country without attacking us with weapons. They are destroying us right now because of the people that are dying, destroying our society. The moral fabric of our families are being destroyed because of the drug abuse situation that we have. Terrible drug abuse situation, disastrous situation that we have here in the United States when it comes to drug abuse.
You know, you speak about China, and many of the precursor chemicals that are used for some of the most deadly drugs on the market now, meth, cocaine, heroin, those chemicals are coming directly from Asia. It's common knowledge. Why do you think the US has not gotten tougher with China? Why not just go to the source? They're supplying these chemicals to the Mexican cartels that are being used to create all of these various drugs. Why not just bypass Mexico and go work something out with China, or try to stop it from coming in that way?
Well, that would be the responsibility of our governing officials to basically sit down with the Chinese and figure out a way for them to cooperate and stop invading us that way. But like I stated before, they're not interested in working with us. I believe the Chinese government wants to destroy this country, and they're doing it. So I must tell our citizens, stop using drugs. They're out to destroy you. They're out to kill us. Stop using them. You are only playing into their hands. They don't care about you. They're trying to kill you. And they're waging this war. And unfortunately, Shawn, right now they are winning this war against us.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way, that they're absolutely winning. And you know, you somewhat touched on this, because I was going to ask you, if you were the president of the United States, with all the knowledge you have from being on the ground for as many years as you did battle with these cartels, where would you start? What would you do that is currently not being done if you had the power to say, you know what, I'm president and I want this to end now? What are steps 1, 2, and 3?
Step number 1, close the border down. Step number 2, deal with the corruption in Mexico. How? Through sanctions, through, I don't know, agreements, what have you. But you have to stop the invasion of our border by illegals, and drugs. And three, I would also educate our people better here and say, don't use drugs. They're trying to destroy you. That's the only way we're going to do it. Shawn, we have to educate our people. And also, I would form a very strong border patrol and support my border patrol. Arrest some of these criminals that are coming through our border. Put them in jail. Support our investigators too, our police. We have totally gotten away from respecting our police. I am a minority too, and I've seen the abuses by police. But we need the police and the military to protect us. We need them. There's a lot of unsung heroes. I know a lot of DEA agents, friends of mine, that came on the job, not for the money, not for the comfort of being a government agent. You know, they came in to try to do something. And they never reached the highest levels of the DEA, the administrators. And I'm not talking about those guys, those appointed by politicians. I'm talking about the street agents that work in the field, that get involved in shootouts. Some of them that get killed and tortured to death, like Kiki Camarena, my friend who was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered by the cartels in Mexico. I mean, could you imagine what that man suffered? I knew him. He didn't come with a job because of the pay. He could have done something better in his life. But he came because he also had a brother that was a heroin addict. And he came to do something. And I know a lot of other black agents that came on the job because they had family members also that were suffering from heroin addiction or meth addiction. And they actually came in to try to do something. And these are the unsung heroes of the drug war. The unsung heroes that never got to be deputy administrators and what have you up there. I'm talking about the street agents that risk their lives every day. The friends of mine that have been killed on the job. I'm talking about them. Those are unsung heroes. Nobody hears about them other than an agent got killed or an agent got, crashed in a helicopter, DEA helicopter because he was, trying to locate opium fields in Mexico, what have you. It happened all the time. You buried him and people forgot about him. I haven't forgot about him. But there are people that come on these jobs, in law enforcement jobs, because they want to do good for their society. They want to protect their citizens. And I know a lot of agents that came on the job because they had this desire. Nothing stops an armed criminal better than an armed, good guy. There are good guys that are not afraid of these criminals, that will take on these criminals and get in shootouts, risk their lives against these guys, protecting citizens. And those are the unsung heroes in law enforcement that we don't hear much about. Like in Vietnam and all the different wars, it's not the generals that are out there fighting. They're not the ones out there, exchanging bullets with the Viet Cong or the enemy. It's the soldiers, the foot soldiers. They're the ones that die. And what do they do with them? They bury them and forget about them. I don't. This is our country. And if we don't fight for it, we're going to lose it. And there's a lot of good guys that will fight to death for this country. And I knew some of them. And they were the deputy administrators and the administrators of any agency. Those are the street guys that you never hear about.
Hector, you're clearly a patriot. You're clearly someone who loves this country. And you fought for it. You killed men, you took lives. How does somebody like yourself, I understand your own flesh and blood, your brother was a heroin addict, but you've done seizures where if a kilo turned up missing, nobody would bat an eye. If hundreds of thousands of dollars turned up missing, no one would bat an eye. How does someone like yourself, even in the midst of the war that you were fighting, remain honest and not say, you know what, I'm being paid minimum wage damn near. And I'm putting my life on the line every day. And I see how much money is being made, and I see how much these people, why not just take a taste? How do you stay honest?
Shawn, there were many times that I would raid houses, hotel rooms, where there was millions of dollars. Not 1 million, several million. I remember one in Anaheim, California one time. We hit this hotel room and there was $14 million in boxes and shoe boxes and paper bags in a closet. I was behind on my mortgage. The thought crossed my mind. I've taken just one bundle, which would have been probably 20 grand or something like that. But I thought to myself, no, I cannot do it. Because once I do it, I will never be the same man ever again. I will never be the man that my father raised me. I don't care if my credit goes to hell. I'm not touching this bundle of money. That's how I didn't do it, because of the way I was raised and the reason why I was fighting this drug war. I would have turned into one of the guys that I'm trying to arrest. Are you kidding me? Because of my moral compass, my morality, the way I was raised. Shawn, I was raised in the Catholic Church. I went to church every Sunday. I was an altar boy. I never saw a gun until I was in the military. I never thought and wanted to kill anybody. But yet I did. I don't like to talk about it, but I've seen the devil. I've been undercover with the devil. They use me like this. They put me in very dangerous situations in Mexico, my own government. That if I would have been uncovered as an undercover agent, I wouldn't be sitting here right now talking to you. So that's how dangerous my assignments were. And not only in Mexico, I went undercover in other countries like Colombia, Bolivia. So basically, when you're working undercover in those countries, you don't have any cover, you don't have any protection, you're on your own. I was involved in shootouts where the shootouts lasted so long that by the time we picked up the bodies, they were already stiff. Rigor mortis had already set in. I'm talking battles that lasted over an hour, 2 hours. And where I had wounded on my side, and I thought I wasn't going to come out alive. I thought, this is it, but I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight till I can't shoot anymore. I've been there. I've seen how violent they are. They are no joke. They are no joke. They will seriously kill you. And if they capture you, they will beat you to death, dismember you, behead you, desecrate your body. They have no respect. These are the animals they're glamorizing in narco corridos. These are the animals that they're making movies on. No, Shawn, something's wrong with our society. We got to change that. We cannot let our children grow up viewing these murderers, these assassins, this sociopath as heroes.
You mentioned the devil. I mean, you're older, you're wiser. You did your time on the front lines. And you say, I've seen the devil. Who's the devil to you? Is it the cartels? Or is it the US government that put you in these situations and they were complicit all along?
That, Shawn, is what really hurt me, is that they were complicit. They would tell me, Hector, go undercover and bust that Mexican guy over there with 10 ounces of heroin. And I would risk my life and arresting that guy, putting him in jail. And then I knew that my government was bringing in tons of cocaine into this country, my own government. Do you think I felt good about going and arresting some black kid or some black Hispanic kid or drug dealer? Think I felt good in putting him away when I knew that my own government was bringing in tons? That is what hurts me. I couldn't do the job after that anymore. I couldn't do it. I lost love of being an undercover agent. I lost that. I lost it. I couldn't do it anymore. And it got to the point where I was liking some of these traffickers I was undercover in, trying to like them more than some of the people that I work with, some of these false guys that were, all they were there for was to get promoted and become, rich off of becoming government employees. No, I basically, like I said, I had a dislike and I hate not only for the criminals, but a lot of times for my own government too, because I knew that my government was corrupt. They caused the crack epidemic of the 80s and 90s in the big cities and the ghettos. They caused it. They were bringing it in. And they were doing it thinking they were doing the right thing in basically funding an unauthorized war in South America, in Nicaragua, within the Nicaraguan war.
I should have asked you this earlier, because we're talking about billions of dollars. But the world has changed. Once upon a time, cash was king. That's not the case anymore. You can't even open a bank account if you have a certain amount of cash without explaining where you got that money from. How are these guys washing their money these days? Because it's not like addicts are paying for their drugs with a credit card.
Basically, they're laundering the money through businesses. Like I stated, the cartels they hire people to open up like this marijuana dispensaries for them, and they launder a lot of money. A lot of the money that they use to set up the building and buy the product and everything else is drug monies, and they're cleaning a lot of this money, laundering them through businesses. They also open up shell corporations, Shawn, that they use to bring money in and out of the country, and they are very much facilitated by banks. Banks are involved in this. I mean, we found out that the BCCI Bank of Credit International out of New York, was laundering billions in drug profits for these cartels. We ended up having to close that bank finally down. But it's not just the drug dealers. It's the banking community is also corrupt. There's a lot of corruption. Money buys a lot of things, Shawn. And a lot of people have made money their God. I was not one of them. I don't love money more than I love my God. And I did not join the DEA because I was going to be a rich man or because I was going to make a lot of money. Like you stated before, I was almost working for minimum wage, risking my life. So therefore, a lot of emphasis and importance is put on how rich a person is, how much wealth they have. But ask yourself, how did they make it? It's hard, especially for people that are struggling. They don't have an education to become millionaires. There's only one way that a person that doesn't have an education that came from the ghetto or the barrio is going to become a millionaire, and that's by criminal activity, mainly drug trafficking. And a lot of our kids, by the way, become drug dealers because they want to have what everybody else has. They want to have the car. They want to have the nice house. They want to be able to take their girlfriends out. And they don't have a job that will accommodate that. Right now, $20 an hour wage wouldn't even afford you to buy a brand new car, less a house, Shawn. That's how bad it is right now. Most young people right now, even college graduates, cannot afford to buy a house. Most of them get out of college, they get a job, and they'll go back to living with their parents, and that's what we're seeing now.
That's very true. The cost of living has gone through the roof. And unfortunately, the wages have not increased to match what the cost of living is. So you're absolutely right. Which brings me to my next question for you. We often think about smuggling coming in from the Mexico side into the U.S. But are you familiar with the Mexicans paying U.S. citizens to smuggle in firearms for them? They're bringing in millions of guns into Mexico every year. They're buying them here legally and then taking them over the border and helping to arm the cartels. Is this something you're familiar with?
I'm very familiar with it, and unfortunately, now the cartels are so powerful that they're not using citizens to buy like firearms to take smuggle them across the border, even though some of it is being done, yes. The situation is who is arming the cartels with surface to air missiles, lost rockets, drones? Who is arming them with those military weapons? Shawn, you can't buy a surface to air missile at your neighborhood, basically gun store. Corrupt enemy countries are arming these cartels. You can't you can't buy an M60 machine gun with a tripod. You can't buy army personnel carriers out in the open market. But yet the cartels, if you look at them, they look like soldiers. They've got the protection. They got the uniforms, even the boots. They drive in army personnel carriers in Mexico. They have the weapons to shoot down helicopters. They have shot down in the last year 2 Black Hawk helicopters. Basically, they were transporting Marines in those 2 Black Hawks, and they were blown out of the sky. So they have the cartels in Mexico have the capability of shooting down jets. These are the weapons they have. What do you think? Even if the president of Mexico says, "I want to do war against the cartels," right now, the cartels might win. They might be better armed than the darn Mexican army. That's how bad it's gotten, Shawn. And nobody addresses who is arming these cartels.
Well, you know, I absolutely read an article where many of the guns are coming in from the United States. But in speaking to you in the past, and I want to make sure I got my facts correct, aren't some of those military grade weapons coming in from China as well?
Yes, as a matter of fact, the Chinese have armed some of these cartels. Also, when I was working for the DEA, our CIA was arming one of the cartels. They were arming the Sinaloa cartel, the Guadalajara cartel. I know because I had witnesses that were there when a CIA operative by the name of Ismael Felix Rodriguez would show up at the airport with his weapons. And some of my witnesses that were working for the Guadalajara cartel then would actually pick up the weapons at the airport and transport them to Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, the head of the Guadalajara cartel. And I'm talking military weapons. I mean, we're talking M16s and M60 machine guns and stuff like that, grenade launchers. And that was back in the 80s and 90s. Now it's more sophisticated. And these guys are very well armed.
Yeah, they're clearly well armed. And I'm sure you saw this as well. I'm not sure if it was this year or sometime last year. Uh, El Chapo, one of his sons, was arrested, and the cartels literally waged war on a police precinct. So much to the fact that the police allowed this man to walk out the front door because they were surrounded and officers were being killed. So clearly, the cartels are outgunning the Mexican authorities.
This situation happened in 2019. It happened in the city of Culiacan, Sinaloa. The police had arrested Ovidio Guzman Loera, or Guzman, Chapo Guzman's son. He's known as El Raton, who was a major fentanyl, basically cloak manufacturer. The Sinaloa cartel sent over 400 heavily armed men, surrounded the location where Ovidio was being held, and basically told them, and they killed a lot of policemen, but they told everybody, we're going to go in and kill all the officers in the precinct there. We're going to kill everybody. So basically, the police, who was asking for more government protection, more troops to come in and save them, were ordered by the president of Mexico, Lopez Obrador, to release him. And so therefore, Ovidio Guzman, Chapo's son, was released by the police, by the authorities, but on orders of Mexico's president. When asked later by reporters why he ordered the release of the criminal, he stated that he just wanted to avoid more bloodshed, more death, so therefore it was better to release him than get involved in a major shootout with the cartels.
Does something like that empower the cartels? Does it make them feel more emboldened, more, look, you guys know what we'll do if you touch one of ours? That was just a message. And hopefully you got it loud and clear.
That is totally correct. It emboldens them. It makes them feel that they are above the law, which they are above the law in Mexico. Yes, the only reason some of the guys, cartel members, are confronted by the Mexican army is because they're doing the bidding of a cartel and they're killing cartel enemies. But that's the only time. And the cartels are at war with each other, very much at war. Villages have been abandoned because of the violence. There's a little town south of us here. It's called Sasabe, Sonora, Mexico. There used to be 60,000 inhabitants in the little village. Guess what, Shawn? Everybody left because the cartel took over the village. Everybody just left. There's no longer really a Sasabe, a city of Sasabe anymore south of our border. That's what's going on every day. Our news media doesn't cover it, but because I speak Spanish, I listen to Mexican media and read Mexican newspapers, and I'm abreast of what's going on. Another reason I'm abreast of what's going on in Mexico right now is because a lot of my old informant sources of information, they still call me and give me information and tell me what's going on. So I do know what's going on currently in Mexico.
Torture. It's a common tactic used by the Mexican cartels. Can you describe for us just how vicious these cartels really are?
They are extremely vicious. They basically will take an enemy of theirs, decapitate him, castrate him, and dismember him, and then go and drop off the human remains at a park so everybody can see it. They even put notes under victims. This is what happens when you go against the Sinaloa cartel. And all you see is a leg, an arm, a head, what have you. Okay, in one instance, the Sinaloa cartel captured 9 Mexican army soldiers. They decapitated all 9 of them, and they're lying their bodies in the town square at the plaza with their heads facing the other way on top of their back. They would lay them on their stomach and then put their hats looking the other way. And another sign, this is what happens when you oppose the Sinaloa cartel. Kids walk through these parks. This is done in the daylight. You see people hung on bridges. Here we saw it in Tijuana, Mexico, south of us. Castrated, naked. Women are also being tortured like that. Raped, decapitated. There was in one occasion where Miguel Angel Gallardo, a major drug lord, had the wife of El Güero Palma, an enemy trafficker, had the wife kidnapped with her kids. The wife was beheaded. They cut her head off. They put it in a gift wrap package and they delivered it to him. And his 2 kids, one 5-year-old boy and a 9-year-old little girl, were also murdered by these cartels. This is how vicious they are. Do you think anybody's going to oppose them when they'll go pick up your wife and decapitate her and send you her head? I've known this. I've investigated. I've seen this. I've been undercover with these guys. Life means nothing to them. Nothing. It's all blood money, Shawn. It's all dirty blood money.
Okay, you have been very outspoken throughout this conversation. The corruption goes as high as the Mexican government. Do you believe, or do you know for fact that the cartels are allowed to operate with impunity in certain areas of the country? Because I know, many of us US citizens will still vacation in places like Cancun or Cabo San Lucas, uh, and it seems relatively safe. Are there deals being made? Hey, leave this part of the country alone, but you guys can go and operate with impunity over on this side.
The reason it's safe is because guess who owns the hotels and the resort cities that the Americans are going to? It belongs to the cartel guys. That's why
Wow.
they own them.
Wow.
They're billionaires. They own all these resorts, Shawn. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's why nobody bothers them, because they're making money off of them. And at one point, there was in Acapulco, there was over 70 tourists that were taken from a hotel in Acapulco, okay, and executed. And the reason that they were taken because they were staying at a drug lord's hotel. I forget his name, Aguilar. I forget his name right now. Anyway, and the opposite cartel, to punish him, to instill vengeance on him, they went to his hotel, took over 70 tourists, and they executed all 70 tourists. That's a fact. That's happening in the 90s. I never forget it. They took everybody out of the hotel and executed them. So it does happen. It could happen. I would not recommend anybody going to Mexico. And not only that, why would you want to go over there and have them make money off of you? They own these resorts, Shawn. That's why that's why nobody attacks them. They protect them because they own them.
I never thought about it that way. Um, by going and vacationing in what you would believe is a safe part of Mexico, you're actually supporting the cartels because they own the hotels. They own everything in those areas. So yes, it's safe, but it's safe because they're making money. This is just mind blowing because it's almost impossible to believe that a civilized country in 2023 can be just this corrupt and the government can do nothing about it. It's just insane to me. Do you see this problem ever going away?
Like I stated before, if they were ever to address the problem of a corrupt government and dealing with that first, shutting the border down and going after these guys and taking them out. And when they spring up again, go back and take them out again. That's the only way you're going to stop this.
Okay, but I asked that question very specifically. Do you ever see that day coming?
Right now, I don't see a lot of hope, but I don't want to lose hope either, Shawn. I really want to be, I'm a dreamer. I want to believe in good. I want to believe it can happen. I just don't see it happening very soon. I hope that it does. But right now, it looks grim. Doesn't look good.
Are you familiar with that case? I believe it was earlier this year. I could have my timeline off, but 4 African Americans crossed the border. One woman, and I believe she had her brother and 2 other friends in the car. And when they crossed the border, I think that they made a wrong turn, went to the wrong town. They were kidnapped, and 2 were killed.
I remember
2
that
were
case,
returned.
yes. And that was, by the way, the other cartel. That was Nueva Generación cartel that I understand committed those murders, killing the two gentlemen.
Okay, these people were clearly African American.
Yes, they were.
They did not speak Spanish. It's almost impossible for them to mistake them as fellow cartel members. Why were they kidnapped?
I don't know the reason, and because nobody was arrested, nobody knows the motive. It's I don't know. Maybe they owed money to the cartels. I don't know. I really don't want to comment on that because I don't know. It appeared to be, like they were just picked up and killed by the cartels for I don't know what reason. They didn't have no history of being involved in criminality themselves. They didn't appear to be at least drug sellers. I mean, there was no record of that, so it's a mystery. You know why? Because nobody got arrested for it, like usual.
Wow. Hey, again, I keep asking questions that I know I'm going to be disappointed with the answers. You know, nobody's arrested. Two people are cut down literally an hour after they cross the border. And the Mexican government does nothing. And for that matter, the US government does nothing. It's disheartening at the very least. And I, I, Hector, you have said people are being greased on both sides. Uh, Even if I'm a skeptic, I have to believe there's some validity or a lot of validity to what you're saying. Wow. Uh, there are 37,000 people who have disappeared in Mexico over the last year. Do you have any idea of what's happening with these people?
They have the victims of the cartels. The cartels are known to pick you up, basically torture you, and then bury you, and nobody ever finds out what happened to you. And the reason it's never a solved crime is because the government of Mexico, the cops are working with the cartel. So they're going to cover up any murders, any disappearances caused by the cartels. When I was down there, it was a different story. We were able to investigate in Mexico. We were given the authority to go and conduct investigations and try to assist the Mexican police in arresting some of these uh, drug cartel members. Now it's not like that. They don't let the DEA investigate anybody over there anymore. The position of the DEA now in Mexico is they serve just as intelligence gathering agents. They don't go out on operations like way we used to when I was with the DEA. We used to go out there and go after them, with automatic weapons ourselves. But now the DEA is not permitted to do that. So therefore, the cartels can do what they want, not monitored by the DEA. The DEA has informants that they can collect intelligence from, but that's their only role. They're not involved in basically in assisting the police and the military in arresting these cartels. They're not even prohibited to come on arrest scenes anymore. They have to stay at the office. That's changed, and it's under this new president who hates the DEA.
But I got to believe that some of these 37,000 people who have just vanished without a trace, they're not all into organized crime. They're not all part of the streets. Some of them, they're regular people. You and I were speaking offline, and you were telling me about women who are being smuggled and raped and forced into sex trafficking. How common is that from your standpoint?
That's very common in Mexico. If a drug cartel, if you're a beautiful woman and and a drug cartel likes you and wants you, he'll have the police pick you up and take him to him, and he'll rape you and kill you. That's how bad it is. They use the police
Uh,
to go and stop a woman. Let's say it's a beautiful tourist down there, and they like her. She has to be a beautiful girl. The police will come and say, "You're under arrest. We're going to take you in for interrogation at the office." And they go and deliver her to some cartel guy who's going to rape her, forcibly rape her, and then kill her. And that happens all the time. This is why, people have got to know this. And nobody's going to investigate that. Just another person that disappeared. Listen, Shawn, they picked up 42 students out of a university in I forget what state it was, in Guerrero, I believe it was. 42 students. They're all dead. They disappeared them. And nobody knows who did it, and they haven't found any other bodies. And that was very much publicized in Mexico. Never made much news here 42 college students were all picked up at once by the cartels and the Mexican police and disappeared. They're all dead. And that was like 7 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. I don't know. Timeline's off. But anyway, that happened. And that's just one incident when they killed 42 of them.
Educate me. Typically, when you think of organized crime, let's say the Italian mafia, and even right here in the States, most people who are being killed, they're in the game. They are literally criminals themselves. They knew the rules, and unfortunately, they did something, and you know, they're shot, they're killed. But it's usually hands off when it comes to civilians. We're not seeing that, or listening to you, we're not seeing that in Mexico. Is there any code or any rules that are being followed in Mexico? Because it seems like it's not just people who are part of the cartels, it's civilians. Everybody is free, it's fair game.
That is correct. It's a matter of fact, people in Mexico, they don't go out at night. As soon as it gets dark, they close their doors and they stay inside. Nobody's out. Nobody goes to parties anymore. Nobody goes to even dances or any type of social event because they fear being picked up and killed by the cartels. That's the way people live in Mexico, the ordinary people. And the ordinary people in Mexico are very good people. They're very religious, very cultural people. But right now, the cartels are all over them. They're living in fear. Because stated before, they don't go out at night. They don't go out to nightclubs. The only people you see at nightclubs are cartel members. That's who you see at nightclubs and socializing in Mexico. They've ruined it. The ordinary poor Mexican can't even afford to buy a kilo of meat a week. They subside on tortillas and frijoles and they eat a lot of chicken and pork because they can't afford basically steaks and stuff like that. They're too poor. And those, I'm talking about the good people. The government people, they're all rich. Why? Because they're protecting the cartels, and the cartels are all rich. That's the way it is in Mexico.
If I were to visit Mexico tomorrow, should I assume if I'm picked up by a law enforcement official, this person is actually working for the cartels?
You have to assume that very much so. You cannot be a cop and operate in Mexico if you're not working with the cartels. They run the police departments. They run the government, Shawn. I mean, to run a police department is nothing. They just go by Alpha Commandante and says, I need so many officers to go help me run a load or smuggle a load of heroin or cocaine across the border. And they do. They provide that kind of protection for them. It's been going on for years. That's known.
Me as an African American male, non Spanish speaking, am I at greater risk or is it fair game for anyone
It's fair
who's
game for
going into
anybody. It's
Mexico?
fair game for anybody. They'll kill anybody. They don't. They're not racist as that. They'll kill you if you're white, Mexican, black. They don't care. African American, they don't care. If you oppose them in any way, if you upset them in any way, they'll kill you. And like I said, you'll be picked up by cops. Says, hey, we're gonna take you in for interrogation, or we're investigating this and that, and you surrender to them, thinking, okay, I didn't do it, so I'm. And you end up being turned over to a cartel guy and says, hey, you did this, it pissed me off or whatever, and I'm gonna decapitate you, and they do it. They are feared because they are barbarians. They're animals. That's how they control to terror, Shawn. I know them. I've exchanged bullets with them. I mean, you go to arrest them and they say, we're the federal police. You're under arrest. And they say, what? And they start shooting at you with machine gun fire. That's how we were answered when we went to try to arrest them. And before you started shooting back, you already had 2 or 3 on your side already shot dead or wounded. That quick.
Uh, do you ever visit Mexico now?
No, I don't. I don't go to Mexico.
When's
First
the
of all,
last
I'm
time you've
very
been to
first
Mexico?
of all, I'm very well known in Mexico because of course, the not the docuseries. I mean, because of the docuseries, which is on Amazon, which we talked about earlier. And basically, I'm an enemy. I'm an enemy of the government of Mexico and the cartels. And I'm not just an enemy of the cartels. I'm an enemy of the government of Mexico too, because I've exposed their corruption.
Yeah, I mean, you just got through talking about if you in any way piss them off, you're a target. So I gotta believe that you are a major target. You are like a red cape to a bull right now.
That is correct.
So when's the
Shawn,
last time you've been to Mexico?
I'm just, I'm just surprised that I'm still alive. And you know, I don't fear anything or anybody. I only fear one person, one entity. I fear God. I am living on borrowed time anyway. So if I get killed by these guys, okay, oh well, I got killed. But at least I died exposing them and trying to correct a horrible situation. I'm not saying that they can come up and kill me here. They're here. They're here. Okay. It's just that they know that they kill me, they're going to get under a lot of heat because I'm well known. And I'm well known because of persons like you that interview me. This keeps me alive because they fear that if I think that if they kill me, it's going to bring a lot of major heat because people are going to say the cartels killed them. And who killed them? It's going to bring a lot of heat on them. Like the Camarena murder, it brought a lot of heat on them. That's the only thing that keeps me alive.
Speaking about the Camarena murder, um, what is it? Ernesto Fonseca. Who are the other two?
Caro Quintero, Felix Gallardo, they're
There
all
you
out.
go.
Well,
Th-
Caro Quintero just got rearrested again because he was released and then it opened up another major cartel, the Sonora drug cartel, and so he's in custody right now. But Fonseca was released. They never seized any of his billions of dollars. Felix Gallardo was also released. They never seized all of his money. These guys, like I said, Fonseca owned resorts. He owned banks. He owned a lot of hotels in resort cities, restaurants, and all of that. They never seized none of that when they arrested him. And Felix Gallardo is also out.
Okay, I gotta peel back the layers here. Are you? Let me get this out properly. Typically in the United States, when assets are obtained through illegal activities, when you're arrested, one of the first things that the government does is takes away any assets that you own that was acquired through illegal activities. Felix Gallardo, Ernesto Fonseca, Rafael Caro Quintero, you're saying when they were arrested, none of their properties, none of their money was touched?
From what I understand, yes, they say on paper that they do, but then they take their chunk and give it back to them because everything is corrupt. In other words, just because they say they seized, let's say, a bank from Ernesto Fonseca, doesn't mean they really seized it. They seize it and they advertise they seized it, but then they give it back to him. In other words, everything is corrupt, John. Everything is corrupt. You can't even believe their arrest statistics. You can't even believe the drugs because even the drugs they seize from them. They make a major newspaper splash. Oh, they seize so many kilos of cocaine or a ton of cocaine. Or later, they end up giving it back to the traffickers. They don't
Okay,
destroy it like
so
we do here. Everything,
um,
when you think about it, everything is corrupt. Are you going to believe anything they say over there?
hmm. Okay, so I gotta, you said Rafael Caro Quintero. He was released. He starts another cartel, and now he's been rearrested.
Yes.
How or why is that possible when somebody like El Mayo, who's been running the Sinaloa cartel for no less than 30 years, is still walking the streets?
Well, the reason that Caro Quintero might be arrested, I don't know, is because maybe he upset El Mayo, and Mayo ordered him to be arrested.
Uh,
You get it?
got it, got it.
That's the way it works. And also, if an enemy cartel is upsetting El Mayo, he could go to the Mexican government and say, arrest that guy. That's what the wars. And so the opposite cartel now has generals on their payroll that protect them. Part of the government protects them, and another part of the government is protecting El Mayo. And that's why you have this war, because these two cartels have become so rich and powerful that they can afford to buy the government. So therefore, if El Mayo says, by the way, Carlos Quintero, I didn't want him to start that cartel in Sonora, and he's not obeying my rules, lock him up. All right, we'll go lock him up. So now he's locked up. But remember, he was arrested for the murder of Camarena, DEA agent, and he got released. How does that happen?
How does it happen that all three of them got released? That's crazy.
And that's what happens in a corrupt country, Shawn. And that's why we have to stop our corruption here. We don't want to end up being like that. This is why we need to basically deal with our own corruption in this country, because it can get that bad, where some people get arrested and other people don't get arrested. So the law must be equal. Okay? It must be equal. You cannot commit a crime and because you have a lot of money or you're a prestigious guy, get away with it, where some other guy from the barrio gets arrested for the same crime and they give him life imprisonment. That's why we have to stop that stuff. We have to nip it at the bud. Corruption can destroy a whole nation. And let me tell you something. We are not clean. I know for a fact we have corruption in this country. And I'm not pointing at one political party in this country. I've known both political parties to suffer from corruption in our country. And we have corruption. And let's not kid ourselves. We all see it. We need to stop it because we can get as bad as Mexico. How would you like some criminal to say, arrest Shawn because I don't like him? And you get arrested. Planted with coke or whatever they want to do with you. That's what happens in a corrupt country. And we cannot go there.
Okay, let's bring this thing domestic. The front runner, Donald Trump. There are polls that have come out that has him ahead of obviously all of the Republican wannabe candidates. And he's also ahead of Biden in many of the key swing states. This is a man who has, I believe, 93 felony charges against him. What do you predict is going to be the outcome with those court cases and him making it back into the White House?
Basically, Shawn, I don't know, and I can't predict if they're gonna prove him guilty. That's the thing, is they're gonna prove him guilty. And if they do, and he's a criminal, then he has no business running for president. Okay, if they can prove that. But on the other hand, if he's being basically accused of falsely just to get him out of the running, now that's corruption. Okay, this is what we're looking at right now, and this is what's going to have to be fought in the courtroom. Is there evidence? And if there is, my position is put him in prison. But if it's not, exonerate him. At the same token, if the other party has filed false charges on him, then they should go to jail, because nobody should charge anybody falsely either. And this is where I'm saying we're getting to the point where we need to have these checks and balances. Okay, I'm not a political guy. You know why I'm not a political guy? I don't support neither party because I've seen corruption in both parties. So am I going to vote for Satan or am I going to work for the devil? I've seen it. I lived it. I've been in the government. I've been ordered not to arrest somebody. You know, and I saw it not only with the DEA, I saw it when I was a highway patrolman, Shawn. I arrested one time this doctor who was drunk on his butt, and he told me, he said, "You can arrest me. I'm a very high political figure. I'm gonna have your job. You can't arrest me." And I said, "I'm gonna arrest you," and I arrested him. Next morning, my sergeant calls me and he says, "Did you arrest Doctor So and So last night?" And I said, "Yes, I did. Would you go to the judge's office and drop charges on him?" And I said, "Why?" He was drunk, really drunk, and he insulted me, said he was going to get me fired. He says, "Hector, he can get you fired. Go to the judge's office right now," and I mentioned the judge, Judge Sharp's office, "and dismiss a DUI on him." I was ordered. So I did. But next day, I see this white guy drunk on his butt too, and I arrest him for DUI, and I put him in the back seat of my patrol car, and I was calling for a tow truck, and he starts crying like a little boy. And I said, "Why are you crying?" He says, "Because I'm a truck driver, and this DUI arrest is going to cause me to lose my job, and I might lose my family. My wife might leave me." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to call your wife to come pick you up right now. But I never want you to drunk drive again because you're posing a danger not only to yourself, but also to other drivers out here." So I got on the dispatch and I called my dispatch and says, "Call this number, talk to this lady, and have her come and pick up her husband over here. He's drunk." And the dispatcher goes, "You're not going to arrest him?" And I said, "No, I'm going to let him go." Man, was I in trouble with my sergeant the next day. He said, "Why are you letting drunk drivers go?" I said, "Because," I said, "you told me to let the doctor go. How's the doctor, who you said was a city councilman and a very important person, different than this guy? This guy's going to lose his job. Sergeant, you're making me where I can't do my job anymore. I can't believe in justice here." So I quit the highway patrol, Shawn, because of that. Because after that, I couldn't arrest anybody for DUI anymore. If I arrest a big guy and then my sergeant's going to call me, "We'll dismiss charges on him," that is not law enforcement to me. That wasn't why I went on the job. And it happens all the time. And it's gotten worse. Some people get arrested and other people do not get arrested. There's not equal justice for all. That's when I say that is corruption right there.
No, I mean, you know, African Americans, I believe, are 30% of the population in this country, yet they're 70% of the incarcerated people in the same country. No, it's not equal justice for all. And we all know that. I want to bring it back to the border before I let you go. We started briefly speaking about Trump and if he would make it back into the White House. Do you believe that out of all of the candidates, if there's going to be anyone to get in the White House and get things under control at the US-Mexican border, it would be him?
I believe so because he did it before. He stopped it. And he was building that wall. And they stopped it. Okay? I believe he would stop that. Okay? I also believe that Donald Trump would go after the cartels because in 2019, when he was president, that's when the Sinaloa cartel executed 13 Mormons. The 13 Mormons that I talked about, they were traveling down to Mexico or a wedding where they burned the babies alive in their baby chairs. Donald Trump went to President Lopez Obrador in Mexico and he told them, we need to come in and go after these cartels. And that's when President Obrador says no. He told Donald Trump that. And with public, I'm going to do war against the cartels with abrazos, not balazos. I'm going to go with them by hugs, not bullets. And he said, with all due respect, I'm trying to avoid a war here. He might as well just said, I'm on the take. I'm corrupt too. I'm not going to do nothing about it. And guess what? Nobody got arrested for those murders either. Somebody got arrested. So that's the way it is.
President Biden just, I believe it was last week, he just signed off on another 200 million going over to Ukraine. If we can continue to find hundreds of millions and billions of dollars to support other countries when they're at war, when they're in need, in your opinion, why can we just not fix this border? Why doesn't $200 million just go here?
I agree with you with that. I think, as I stated before, the primary priority of any government is to protect its citizens. Are we more worried about the Ukrainians than we're worried about our own citizens? Are we more worried about supporting as a war in Ukraine than we have a war that has been waged against us by the Chinese on our Mexican border and not address that? I agree that we need to help the Iranians or the Ukrainians. I agree we need to help the Ukrainians in Ukraine. However, not at the cost of our own citizens. Our citizens should be placed first. And I don't think that we should be pumping all this money to fight this war against the Russians. I don't think that the Ukrainians will ever win a war against the Russians. I really don't believe that. And there are other ways to stop the Russians other than supporting a war that is going nowhere. I think that you could put sanctions on the Russians, make the Russians suffer in another way, other than us pumping billions of dollars into a war that is not going to be won. I don't believe that they're going to win that war in Ukraine. And now we're asked to provide billions of dollars also to support the Israelis. But yet, what are we doing for our own people, Shawn? Our priority should be our own people. And right now, like I said, we are suffering in this country. We're suffering because of the invasion at our southern border. We are suffering economically in this country, as I stated before. A young kid can't even, a young family can't even afford to buy a house with the interest rate, 7-8% interest rates. I mean, what's going on here? Are we more concerned about taking care of all these other people than our own? Veterans, okay, are out on the street because they've thrown them out of hotels where they had them lodged, housed in different locations, and they're bringing in and putting in the illegal aliens in there. Our tax money is going to the illegal aliens being given money to buy tickets to go fly wherever they want to fly. Come on, when are we going to run out of money? We're printing money right now because there's no backing to our dollar anymore, and our dollar has also decreased. I understand in 3 or 4 years. Now our dollar is worth 68 cents, and it was worth $1 2 years ago. So in 2 years, 3 years, our dollar has decreased to 68 cents in buying power. Gasoline here in California is $6 a gallon. You cross over to Arizona, and it's $3 a gallon. How can it be so much different? $3 from one state to the other. Why? Because we are a sanctuary state, and we are supporting the invasion of all these illegals. That's where a lot of our money is going. And I don't think we should throw our vets out on the streets to house these illegal aliens that are coming in. I think that's so wrong. These veterans that fought for this country are out on the street, a lot of them.
If you don't mind me asking, where were you born?
I was born in the United States.
You were born in the United States. Are you looked at as a sellout? Are you looked at as a traitor to Mexican people for speaking out? Because you clearly love the Mexican side of yourself. I understand you were born here in the United States, but you're very outspoken about what's going on over there. How do you think other Mexican Americans view you?
You know, I obviously don't care about how people view me, but I'll tell you, some people view me as a hero because of the things that I've been involved in, the things that I've done, like kidnapping criminals myself, and I'm viewed as a hero by some people, but yet I am viewed as a traitor by other people. It all depends who you talk to. I'm a hero to some people, then I'm a goat and a traitor to other people. My government doesn't like me because I've exposed the corruption in our government. So, do you think I'm liked by the DEA right now? I'm not.
No, you're not.
Okay. Do you think I'm liked by the Mexican government? Of course I'm not. But do the people, the citizens of Mexico, I'm a hero to them because I'm outspoken and I'm exposing their suffering. Okay. So it all depends who you talk to. So I've decided myself, I'm not going to care what people think of me. I'm going to continue with my morality, what I think is right, and doing the things that I was taught by my family and my Christian, my religious, basically upbringing. I'm going to stick with that. And if I die tomorrow, Shawn, oh well, I've lived a good life and I fought a good fight.
If you die tomorrow, what do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered?
Basically, I want to be viewed as a person that cared for the underdog, a person that cared for the suffering, the needy. I want to be viewed as that. And I'm going to encourage people to read my book, because my book, and I'm going to show it here right now, The Last Narc, is not a DEA drug story. It's a story of my travels through the Mexican government and my life. It's not a heroic book. I outline my suffering, the loss of my son, basically how my brother was a heroin addict and why I took on this war against the criminals. It is a human story of a poor barrio Mexican boy that got to brief attorney generals at the White House, and how I got there, and how I suffered, and how I am not viewed by my government as any type of hero. As a matter of fact, they view me as a traitor. And I don't care how they view me, because I know in my heart that I told the truth. And I also, in this book, outline the unsung heroes in law enforcement. The border patrolmen that are out there right now being disrespected, that are not being admitted, from doing their jobs, being prohibited by doing their jobs. Our soldiers that are fighting these wars, those are my heroes, not the generals that don't fight. The guys that are coming back without, either in caskets or are coming back without legs and arms. Those are my heroes. Not the bosses, not the generals, not the deputy and administrators. The guys that are out there fighting for the country that we never hear about. That's what my book is about. It's a human story. And as I get older, I see some of my colleagues with the DEA that were like me, that were really waging a fight, that they've died, and I'm speaking for them. They never had the accolades. They never had the awards, but they were there, they were steady, and they took on the fight, and they put up a good fight. And I encourage everybody to read this book. It's not about busting people so much and this kind of thing. It's the suffering that I went through, the bad moments when I lost my son, that I was never around because I was always TDY'd in either Colombia or Mexico or somewhere. I wasn't there for my son, and I don't have him anymore. Okay, this is what this book is about. So I encourage people to go out and read this book. It's a human life story book. That's what it is.
I think it's an incredible book. I advise everyone, and I can't imagine anyone that sits down and hears this interview not wanting to go and read that book, because that book is so damn powerful. Where can they get it? Where can they pick it up at?
It's they can buy it online on Amazon. It's on sale at Amazon. It's one of the top-rated books in the criminal division of their book sales.
Beautiful, beautiful. As always, Hector, it has been my pleasure, my honor to sit down with you. I think that you are a rare breed. So many people talk a good talk, they talk a good game. But when it really comes to putting their money where their mouth is, they don't show up. You're doing what you were put here to do. So I thank you for what you did when you were actively on the streets, and I thank you even more for what you're doing now. I think these are the stories that need to be told, and you're doing a great job telling it. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you.
I want to thank you, Shawn, so much for having me and letting me, speak what I believe in to our citizens. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. On behalf of myself and VladTV, much love and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you,
Merry
brother.
Christmas to your family also. Thank you so much, Shawn.
Be well.
Take care.